Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, we got to watch an honest to goodness Ohio State football practice today. So, anytime you get to do that, that's always a good sign. That's always a good part of the year to be in. So, yeah, I think it's going well. Tony, did you enjoy watching an honest to goodness Ohio State football practice today?
I did. It's always good to be there. It's the mark of the official start of the football season, basically. And spring practice goes really quickly. And then you've got May, June, and then July. And May and June can kind of go by pretty slowly, but then things just start moving really, really quickly. And then boom, it's football season. So, I'm it was good to be back there. And we talked about what we saw on today's edition of Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning that you can find already on YouTube and in your podcast platforms of choice, especially since as we record this now, everything is already dropped and this won't be dropped for a little while yet. So we talked about what we saw there, what we learned. I wanted to spend some time here talking about a lot of what Chip Kelly had to say, because this was our first time getting to talk to him, getting to see how he interacted with his players, how he interacted with his coaches. And I just want to throw some first impressions out there, get yours, because I was just watching him and then after we got to talk to him, like, this was not the guy I necessarily was told to expect. And, maybe more of a curmudgeon or just, short with the media. Like, the media is an obligation. It's not something he enjoys doing. I believe he was there for most of Ryan Day's press conference of 20 to 25 minutes, just sitting up in the room waiting for his turn. But watching him on the field, he's running around. He's poking fun with players. I saw him smack Quinshon Judkins on the helmet. They had a handshake and then he smacked him on the helmet and they parted, and joking with Tim Walton about Caleb Downs. This seems like the good kind of energy for the Ohio State offense.
Yeah, I think the thing that you said there that resonated the most with me was this is not what we were told to expect. And he has a reputation as being a little bit gruff and not necessarily enjoying some of the peripheral stuff about the job of football. Like, he wants to go be a football coach and he doesn't necessarily want to deal with the hassle of talking to schlubs like us or, dealing with the booster stuff or whatever. And he was asked about that a little bit and didn't really kind of play ball on that one. But, you're right. It just seemed like everyone was in a good mood. And, maybe it's like sort of first day of class vibes, first day of school vibes, where it's kind of like, oh, I haven't seen people since the summer. And, so it's good to get back together. It's good to be back out there. And it's not super serious because it's the first day. But yeah, it was like he was like lots of smiles on the field and joking around with people. And, I assume that things are probably going to get a little more down to business as they get a little further on into the spring. But yeah, he was very, seemingly very entertaining on the football field, and then a very entertaining press conference. You don't often have someone reference John Lennon, Al Haig, and who was it, Socrates? He referenced some Greek philosopher at one point as well. And it was like, boy, this is, not, dropping Phil Knight stories and all sorts of stuff. It was very interesting to hear him talk, because, the fun, always entertaining press conference offensive coordinator. Like, we had that for years with Kevin Wilson. Really didn't have that last year. It's kind of fun to maybe have that back.
He even referenced, I believe, Little Giants, talking about the annexation of Puerto Rico at some point in there. And you mentioned the other stuff that head coaches had to do and how much that bothered him. I mean, he said, boosters, that's like all of a kind of that's a story that maybe people thought is true in terms of how he cares for it. But he said it's not one thing that kind of drives you away, and he had no problem dealing with boosters. And then he rattles off this list of just sports icons. He's like, I was just with Phil Knight 2 weeks ago. And that was one of the quotes. And it's like, this dude is a high roller in terms of the shoulder rubbing that goes on. But he did talk about why he decided to leave. And I like the origin story of it, which was his quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator left between the regular season, the end of the regular season, and the bowl game. So he was coaching the quarterbacks, getting them ready for their bowl game. And you just kind of fall back in love with it. And his wife told him, it's the happiest I've seen you in a long time. And he was happy. And so that was kind of the genesis of maybe this is what I need and this is what I want to do. And then, of course, the right opportunity would have to happen. And you hear the reports of like maybe looking for an NFL offensive coordinator spot. The Ohio State situation seemed like the perfect fit for him, which he said. But I did think it was just interesting that we have talked before in the past about coaches, when they become head coaches, they miss out on coaching. And he talked about how when he made this move, he had other head coaches texting him and calling him saying, I'm 2 years behind you, brother.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that might be an easier said than done thing for a lot of people. Like, I think there are probably coaches that admire the fact that he did this. I don't know that it's that easy to just walk away from something. He has been a head coach for long enough that he has collected at least a 7 and maybe 8-figure paycheck during a lot of years for long enough that it's a little easier to walk away. And you see coaches do that sometimes. Gene Chizik at one point just kind of walked away, and it was like, well, I'm just going to go spend some time with my family. And, he had coached at Auburn, and as every Auburn coach does, gotten a nice fat buyout. And so he's like, well, I'm just going to go spend a couple of years with my kids. And then he went back and he was in DC for North Carolina for a while, but you catch the bug again. But it's, he's in a little bit of an easier spot to walk away from that kind of a paycheck than maybe other coaches are. But it's a very common sentiment that, you miss the reason you got into this is working with the players, working with the young men, helping them grow personally, grow as athletes, grow as individuals. That's the reason you got into it. You didn't get into this to go to booster meetings and go talk in front of Rotary clubs and go do this and do that and, shake hands and kiss babies. And, a lot of times there's probably a difference in a coach's mind between going and coaching at a coaching clinic where you're talking ball with your fellow coaches and, everyone's kind of got a lip in and everyone, they're backslapping and that kind of stuff. And just, really breaking down the nitty gritty of, hey, how do you do this when they put a man in motion, how does that change what you want to do here? And like, that's the kind of stuff coaches want to do. They want to work with players. They want to talk to other coaches. They want to draw up ball plays. That's the kind of stuff they want to do. They don't want to do the administrative crap. And, this is a chance for Chip Kelly to probably have to do less of the administrative crap and do more of the stuff that you want to do. There has been like a race to declare this like a trend that, Jeff Hafley left, and that means that this is now going to happen all over college football. And the data doesn't really back that up yet. We'll see whether this is a trend or not. But it is something that I think other coaches look at and kind of go, maybe it's a little more aspirational for other coaches than you might think.
Well, and when it presented to Chip Kelly, like, when we talked to him on Tuesday, it's like leaving UCLA you're the head coach, you leave to become offensive coordinator. That's not something you do. And the quote he said was, I do a lot of things that other people don't do. And I was like, yeah, that pretty much that describes Chip Kelly almost to a perfect T. Like, he doesn't really care about what is normal and what is not. He never has. And that's what has made him essentially a college football Hall of Famer when he's done with coaching. Speaking about him being done with coaching, the quote of the year to this point, when he was asked, did you think about quitting UCLA or leaving? And he said, I never thought about quitting or not coaching. I'm going to coach and then I'm going to die. And that's the ball coach that you're talking about there. And I thought it was interesting when he talked about telling his players that he was leaving. And he said it was important for him to actually talk to them and tell them why. And, a lot of coaches will send a group text or something of that nature, like, hey, I'm in Seattle now. Sorry, I'm at the University of Washington or whatever. But he told them, basically, they got them all together and said, this is why I'm leaving. I want to go coach a position. I want to coach players. I'm not leaving for another job, like another head coaching job that pays me more or whatever. This is a cut in pay. This is kind of just getting back to the roots. Now, Ohio State is not necessarily the roots because there's a lot of branches and a lot of nice trees and things like that. So it's not like ground level of, I'm going to get my fingernails dirty or whatever. But for a head coach, this is getting back to being able to just coach a position, coach the quarterbacks, coach the offense, coordinate an offense. And I have to think that's easier for some players to accept when your coach is like, hey man, I just want to coach and I can't do it here. I'm not saying they were all made happy by it. Although the way Chip Kelly was presented to us before all of this, it's like, does anybody like this guy? And from what we saw today, maybe this is a more concerted effort, but from what we have to go on, it seems to me like he's the kind of coach that you would be okay playing for, because especially now, like he is, if your coach is happy with you and just happy with the situation in total, it seems like you're going to get more out of him than if he's just angry and bitter and I can't believe my career has come to this. Like he seems to be in a really good place right now for himself and then also for the players. But I just think it's interesting that, do you think it's easier for the players at UCLA to accept? Like, because to me, that's not a bad answer.
No, it's not a bad answer at all. And I think, I think the tricky part of this is you're talking about 18 to 21-year-olds who probably have not walked this out the way, and if you're in your 40s, you have a different view of things. And Chip Kelly, I think, is in his maybe 50s. But, if you're in your 40s or 50s, you have a very different view of work and life and all that kind of stuff than you do when you're 18 to 21 and you're on a college football team. And I think there's kind of the Foxhole mentality when you're a college football player. So, I don't know how many, I have not taken a survey of the UCLA football team, but I can't imagine that that giving the reasons move the needle for 18 to 21-year-olds quite the way that it might for 45 or 50-year-olds who've maybe lived that experience a little more. But, you've probably had a job you didn't like, and you've probably had at some point a job that you enjoyed. And when you have a job you like, it makes it easier to get up in the morning. It makes it easier to go to work. You end up doing a better job. To your point, if you are enjoying where you're working, you're going to be putting in more time. You're going to be putting in more work. You're going to be doing a better job, which then makes you enjoy your job more. It's cyclical in a good way, or it's cyclical in a bad way. And, I see this with my kids, and if they are putting in the work in youth sports or school or whatever, then they're seeing more success and they enjoy the success. And if they see more success, well, then they want to put in more work, and that just feeds more and more success. It can work the other way as well. If you're not enjoying yourself and you're going in with a bad attitude to something, or you don't want to be there, that's going to seep into your work and that's going to hurt your performance. So I think either way, it can become a cyclical and sort of self-reinforcing thing. If he is enjoying life and getting up with a smile on his face and to come into work and, he's looking around at the talent around him and, he was asked about the talent around him and it was like, yes, there is some talent around me now. Almost unquestionably, there is quite a bit of talent around me right now. That's fun. You're working with players who can do incredible stuff. You're working with players who, by the nature of what it takes to get to where they are right now, are the type of self-motivated, self-starting, really really put in the extra effort kind of players, which then that just becomes more, that snowball can roll downhill in a good way.
And Ryan Day even said today on Tuesday that this is as close to a professional team as he's had in terms of the approach from the players. Like there's so many players that are being professional about this. And I'm sure as Chip Kelly looks around, you don't want to ever downplay where you've come from. But it's always like this when we talk to a new coach that comes to Ohio State. We're like, so you used to be at Oklahoma State. What's it like now being at Ohio State? Isn't it great? And the coaches are like, I love those kids. I love the kids from my old place, but I really love my new kids. The step kids are so much better than the original kids. They were nice for their time, but I've grown and I've moved on. And that's kind of what the situation is right now. Chip Kelly's saying when he was asked, is there an appeal about getting innovative with the Ohio State offense? And he's like, yes, but it's more about who you're working with in terms of like the coaches and things like that. But also, yes, it is very appealing, that innovation. And in terms of the coaching staff, when he talks about you, like you can just have a conversation with so many of these different guys, and they're legitimate bigwigs in the business. Talked about Larry Johnson and Jim Knowles, and everybody knows Brian Hartline, and of course his long-standing relationship with Justin Fry. But and Tim Walton, of course. But there's just so much with so much to work with. I think he's been, I would say, rejuvenated, but that's perhaps an insult to him, because he's like, well, I've always had energy. I've always, like, we're only seeing him in this way. But I don't think this. I don't know that we would have gotten this from Bill O'Brien.
I don't know that we would have gotten this from Bill O'Brien, but if we had gotten them in the different order and Chip Kelly had shown up for 2 weeks and then we never got to talk to Chip Kelly, and then we got Bill O'Brien and Bill O'Brien was like this, I certainly would have said, well, we certainly wouldn't have gotten this from Chip Kelly. So I don't know. I mean, and this is, what's this? This is like being a boat owner. Like, what's the best day of being an Ohio State football coach? It's the day you buy it and the day you sell it, right? And he hasn't lost yet. He has not had to punt. He's not gone 3 and out yet. Like, he has not had the full spectrum of experiences of being an Ohio State football coach. And, the day you buy it, the day you sell it. And, hey, maybe the day you win the America's Cup, because they got a pretty good team this year. So, he could have another good day in a few months. But this is, you're still in your honeymoon period right now. And, he has not gone 3 and out once. He has not called a run a run into the boundary, a wide run into the boundary on 3rd and medium at any point. So, no one, he has not gotten yelled at by Ohio State fans on Twitter. So, don't worry. There's plenty more life to come. Plenty more life to come for Chip Kelly at Ohio State. But, I mean, for day one, at least day one of spring ball, he sure seems like a guy who's happy to be here.
Yes, the Dennis Conner of coaches, Tom, is, I think, what you're going for there with the America's Cup.
Tony, I will pay you $50 American if you can name another yacht captain from the America's Cup in the next 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Sorry, we were looking for Judge Smales.
Iron?
Judge Smales was the answer we were looking for there, but no. Yes, congratulations. You got the one that everyone gets. Good job.
Dennis Connors Jr.? I assume this is something the kid does as well.
It does. That does feel like a line of work that might have some ference in it. Let's put it that way.
Old DJ, first you got to win a regatta.
Denju.
Anyway, the aspect of play calling for Chip Kelly, you mentioned, we're all just like, yeah, now you're going to be calling plays, and Chip's like, well, we haven't really talked about that yet. And it's interesting to me that they have these conversations, him and Ryan Day, about the offense, but it's like they've not really gotten into that kind of minutia yet, if you want to believe Chip Kelly. And the aspect of, how are you going to be able to work for Ryan Day? He used to work for you. You've known him since he was a child. How is this going to be? And both he and I think Day said this afterwards, or beforehand, that it was never a situation when he was working for Chip Kelly that he was working for Chip Kelly. He was working with Chip Kelly, and that's how Chip Kelly made the coaching staff feel. And that's the same thing with Ryan Day. Chip Kelly isn't necessarily working for Ryan Day. He's working with Ryan Day for this offense and for the players. They're kind of really working for the players, working with the coaches. And it's just the connection that those two guys have. All of this great news, all of these, this camaraderie and this, basically they can mind meld. They don't even need to talk, verbally. They just know everything that they're doing for each other and what the offense needs. I'm still confused. Maybe we should ask Ryan Day this when we talk to him next. Why was Chip Kelly the second choice?
I would assume the answer is because Chip Kelly wasn't necessarily in the market to do this immediately. And he, had looked at some NFL gigs and that kind of stuff as well. But, I'm guessing Chip Kelly wasn't ready to take the Ohio State offensive coordinator position at the time, because these guys talk all the time. Ryan Day has talked about the fact in previous years, he talked multiple times about the fact that, he was talking to Chip Kelly, and Chip Kelly was on the golf course or wasn't he with Chip Kelly? He was with
Yeah.
Chip Kelly, I think, when Chip Kelly got the call that UCLA was joining the Big Ten. Like they were playing golf or something together. I believe that was the story. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's right. But they talk all the time. We talk to Ryan Day about talking to Chip Kelly. Feels like twice a year he gets asked about something about Chip Kelly each year. So, this is not like a new thing. This is not something that's being retconned. Chip Kelly talked about the fact that they grew up in the same town. They grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is not, this is not like Brooklyn or, Los Angeles. Manchester, New Hampshire is not that big a city, man. And New Hampshire itself is not that big a state. They went to the same high school. Chip Kelly said he's known Ryan Day since Ryan Day was playing like Little League football. Chip Kelly was Ryan Day's coordinator in college. He told it was Kelly who told the story about, at one point Day kind of got smacked on a play, and Chip Kelly was telling about the importance of being down on the sideline to be able to look into your player's eyes and something like that. And he said that Day kind of looked at him and was just basically said, like, run this one. Like, I fell on my keys, like, oh, and, like, I'm going to need a minute, run, do me a favor and run this one kind of thing. But, that's the kind of thing you go back to. This is 25 basically years ago now that these guys have that kind of working relationship together. I did enjoy, Tony, when Chip Kelly said that on the first day, jokingly, on the first day, Day told Kelly he needed to call him sir every time he addressed him during that first day.
Now, honestly, I could see Day saying that in a joking manner, but that was just one of the many jokes and the moments of levity that Chip Kelly threw out there. In terms of the offensive style, he did say that he's already implementing some running game things, which I think everybody, Ohio State fans out there, are going to love to hear. Chip Kelly has been able to be innovative in the running game, productive in the running game, and you can know it's coming and still not be able to stop it, which is something that Justin Fry thought that he was going to be able to bring in when he came over. The idea of 3rd and 2, what we're going to do, we're still going to do it. And the idea of tempo, and we get this image of Chip Kelly at Oregon when he's running tempo, 1,000 plays a game, they're moving super fast. I think we all still remember talking with Jim Tressel back in the 2009 season, heading for the Rose Bowl. It's like, Jim Tressel, how are your Buckeyes going to handle this up-tempo offense? And I think he said something to the fact that, well, we're an up-tempo defense. And just I was going to throw that out there to Chip. Hey, do you remember that up-tempo defense? But he did say that when he left Oregon to go to the NFL, he left. Oregon had shiny helmets and they ran tempo, and he brought that there. And they were the only people doing that. And then when he came back to UCLA, like everybody in college had shiny helmets and they're running tempo. Defenses have caught on. It's not something that you can just survive on. He said, I think tempo is part of an offense, but I don't think it's an offense in itself. I think it's more like if you go to dinner, it's a side order. It's not the main course, but it's always good to have it. So I think there's times when you'll use it, but you're not going to use it extensively. That's the same thing Ryan Day has talked about, changing speeds, looking for the right plays, and defense is now trotting off players if you're substituting. And so it's like, you're not trying to do it as much. And I know people I've seen on Twitter on Tuesday, like, all right, Chip Kelly's talking tempo. It's going to be, 80 plays a game. And it's just not how things are going anymore. And you'll have it, but Tom, I'm not expecting it to be all that much different in terms of how many plays per game. Now, I think they'll take last year and learn from it, but also if you get more first downs, you're going to have more plays.
Well, and the interesting dynamic here is it looks like they're going to add helmet radios. That's either officially been approved or almost been officially approved for this year. And Ryan Day talked on Tuesday morning about, he just kind of like casually mentioned, like, we're not gonna never huddle, but we're not gonna huddle all the time. Like, we're probably not gonna huddle all the time. And it was kind of like, well, I mean, they might huddle much of the time, because if you've got a helmet radio and only the quarterback has the helmet radio, then maybe you're going to be huddling a lot more than you used to. So there are a bunch of different moving pieces here that we don't officially have the answer to how everyone's going to handle this kind of stuff. I think if you're running stuff through a helmet radio and you're not going to signal plays in, because there have been indications that has maybe caused issues for teams in the past, then that's probably going to change a little bit the speed with which you're operating. Now, you could maybe get your play in quickly. You could get a quick call, like a little bit of a sugar huddle, and then boom, you go out to the line and you go quick. You don't spend a lot of time in the line with checks and that kind of stuff. But that's going to be a piece of this where I think tempo is going to generally be slower and fewer plays this year, just as people are getting used to those helmet radios in addition to whatever else is happening in the game.
Yeah, that will be interesting to watch. I wonder if they'll be doing that at some point in the spring, or if that's more of a fall camp type of thing, or maybe is that a Saturday scrimmage thing. The last thing I want to discuss as I scroll through here and I lose my place, where will Chip Kelly be? Will he be in the box? Will he be on the sideline? That is still up in the air. He said there's pluses and minuses to it. It was interesting. He said when during the COVID season of 2020, and there are no fans in the stands, he thought the perfect place for him to be would be like kind of up in the stands because you're still kind of close to the players, but you're also up a little bit. And then he said, obviously the best vantage point is up top. You can see the game better, but you feel the game better down on the sideline. I guess it just depends. Like I kind of envisioned him being up in the press box. I guess it just depends on how comfortable he feels. If he stays on the sideline, how comfortable he feels from the information that he's getting up in the box from whether it's Keenan Bailey or Mike Soleni, whoever else is up there, or if it's just something that he's going to have to do himself. And they haven't decided on that yet. And I don't even know that they've really talked about that. That's just another one of those things that they haven't talked about yet because they're so focused on the personnel. But I just envisioned him being in the press box because I just view him kind of like as the new Kevin Wilson, but on another level because he's going to be calling the plays.
Yeah, I envision that as well, just because that's typically been where, Jim Knowles is up in the box.
Mm.
Kevin Wilson was always up in the box. You have, this is, Chip Kelly's going to be calling the plays, but, Ryan Day's on the headset. Ryan Day's probably going to have some input in that as well. So then you have Ryan Day on the sideline, but you also have Chip Kelly upstairs. That would make the most sense to me, but we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of time for them to sort all that out. Half the time it feels like we have this conversation in the middle of fall camp, and they're like, yeah, we're kind of figuring that out, or we think we might know what we're going to do, but we're not sure yet. And, this is one of these things that we talk about a bunch. And, when I say we, I mean kind of the media. Like he got asked about it, I think a couple times in different ways. And it's one of those things that I understand why it's important. I don't think that, I think half the people listening to this are like, why do these idiots always talk about this stuff? And it's like, it does matter. But this is the point of the year when they're probably, especially with the helmet communication stuff and all that, I think that's going to make a big impact on, that workflow. And they're probably going to try it a couple different ways because Kelly said he sees advantages and disadvantages to both. So I would guess they will probably, as you said, you're probably running stuff during scrimmages and you try one with him upstairs, you try one with him downstairs, and you see how it's going and you sort of adjust from there.
I did like his suggestion. He said, if they could just get me a zip wire and I can start up top. And then when I need to come down, just, jump on the zip wire. I don't know, do you get the interns or GAs to like wheel you back up, pull you back up through the pulley system, back up to the press box? It might take a while, especially with these 3 and outs. He's probably going to get like halfway up and then have to come back down. But 3 and outs from the defense, not the Ohio State offense. But anything else, Tom, before we get out of here?
No, just it was an absolute delight to be there. And then it will be an absolute delight to be back there on Thursday as well. We get to watch another little bit of practice and then do some more interviews. And, it is always pleasant, always wonderful to have Ohio State football, even if it's kind of Ohio State football with a little bit of an asterisk because it's the spring, back in our lives once again.
Yep. And so we'll be there Thursday morning again. And then the students are off for a week for spring break after that. So they'll be off next week and then they'll be back the week after that for practices 3, 4, and 5 during the week. So that will do it from here. I want to thank you all for tuning in. As always, if you have not yet hit the bell to be notified on YouTube when we go live, when we drop videos, because it's going to be happening quite a bit now during the spring, go ahead and hit that now. Subscribe if you haven't. And of course, you can always find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com and become a member there. That is a fantastic and appreciative way to support us. So thank you all for tuning in. and we'll talk to you guys later.